Hello, hello, Facebook family. How you guys doing today? It is Wednesday, 7:01, at least on my clock. 7:01, Wednesday, June 28th. So I'm going to get into the comments. Make sure, please post your name and where you're from, just so we can know who's out there. But elevate. 7 laws of teaching, 5 through 7. This is our final one on the 7 laws of teaching. I hope that you got something out of it. But today is the could you hear can you hear me, Ann? I'm a little nervous about the sound. Can you hear me, Ann? Let's see if Ann can hear me. Oh, I guess well, I know you've done this. Yep. I appreciate it. I start thinking about it. I was like, well, she said yes from she posted, but you know how this goes. So you always post. My parents are good to see you. 7 laws of teaching. So this is a I didn't bring the book up. I should have brought the book. And actually I ordered the unabridged version too. I just haven't looked at it yet. But I'm super excited to have both copies. But I just wanted to make sure that we Char's not with me today. She had to take care of some business. It's been a hectic 2 days for us. Things that normally don't happen. Uh, Aunt Stephanie's on. Appreciate you coming on. But definitely want to talk about the 7 laws of teaching and finish it up. Um, I don't know if you can just use your mind's eye. Use your mind's eye and think about the people that you supervise or have supervised in the past, and if they really understood how to teach. Oh man, that's a whole nother. Me and Ann, we got to go offline to tell you about this hoodie. I got to go offline. I was thinking it wouldn't show in detail on camera, but I try to change up the shirt so every time somebody looks at a video, they don't see me in the same shirt. So I'm running out of shirts. So I put this on. So anyway, I'll tell you offline about the hoodie. Actually, I was going to get this for my dad, but if he likes it, I'll still get it for him. I thought maybe this is too radical as far as colors and design, not too radical as far as the beliefs, but anyway, we'll talk about it offline. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I get on this real quick, and I know it's 7:05 already. I wanted to talk about some housekeeping things. What is Elevate? Elevate is a leadership company where we coach and we train. I always tell people there's a lot of different people out there. There's motivational speakers. There's people that are coaches. There's people that are trainers. And I always say in that realm, you basically have 3 types of trainers out there. You have what we call ourselves the doers. And the doers are the people that have actually done it. They're not just talking out the side of their neck. They're not talking about what they've heard. They're actually doing it. And this is what we do day in and day out. We coach and we train people. That's what we do. So you got the other one, which is I call it the second level, which will be you get number 1 is the doer. Number 2 would be the deputy. That means they were around people. They were part of that core group that made it happen, but they weren't the leader, right? And then the last group, we call them the degreed. And they went to school. They have they have some advanced degrees. They've read a lot of books, and they come out and they teach concepts. And they might really believe in these concepts, but that is as far as it goes. They haven't really been out there in the field making it happen. All 3 levels are great. Just know that the doer is the number 1 level. You want to be that person that has actually been doing it. You want to hear from that person. It's just a difference. It's just a difference. Some of the nuances, some of the little things that they've overcome. Some of them might seem simple, and some of the answers are super simple if you went through it. So anyway, Elevate starts expectations, leadership, ethics, vision, attitude, temperaments, effectiveness, and that's the namesake of the company. And that's actually a session we do. And I was talking to somebody at this one company, and we dice it up. It just matters on what the company has. This one company, they're dealing with their leaders having a hard time dealing with conflict. So, man, right now we're in the negotiation stages or getting to know me stages, more so that. So anyway, that's hopefully I get in there and maybe we can bloom into the whole full-blown Elevate session and do it there. But what are we looking for? Who do we service? We do service, and we specialize in training that person who came in as an individual and then moved up into a leadership position. That's who we specialize in. We specialize with that person. They started off as an individual. They got the job. They did a great job. And then they moved up and got promoted. But they never really had the leadership skills taught to them. They were just a hardworking individual. And a lot of times those people are like, man, they should know better. Or, hey, Tamika, it's good to see you on there. Hey, so they're like, these people should know better. I'm not going to watch a grown man. Whenever you hear that, that's when you know you're dealing with somebody that don't quite understand what their role is as a leader. So, when I go into a company, that's the first thing I want to do, especially when they're dealing with conflict and leaders knowing how to deal with conflict. They have to look at and understand what their role is. That's the number one. Once you really start understanding your role, then you look at conflict completely different. So that's who we provide services for. And that is, my dad typed in there, he likes his styles. My dad wanted, okay, that's, I'm going to get him this. It was funny because Shar and I were talking about this, getting you one of these. But now, I got to get my mom something. I can't send you something and then my mom don't get anything. So anyway, I wanted to just review real quick, and I'm going to skip the jokes. And I know you guys are deeply, deeply disappointed, but it's just a time thing. I wanted to do this subject somewhat justice because really this is a 4-hour deal. But we're trying to chop it up and just give you a little bit. In fact, out of the 7 laws, I've only went into detail on 1 so far. And today it'll be number 2. It'll be number 2 that I go into detail on of the 7. So, but what we talked about was, I'm not going to go over the legs. I feel like we went over that enough. But the first law was the law of the teacher, right? The teacher must know what he is teaching. That's just a breakdown of that law. The teacher must know what he's teaching. The second law is the law of the learner. And I'm trying to go through my notes real quick and make sure I don't miss anything. But the law of the learner is making sure, and bear with me here, I'm trying to find it on my notes here. The law of the learner is the one who attends with interest in the lesson, right? The third one is the law of language, making sure that we use a language. Jokes, I'm so sad. I see you, Stephanie. The law of the language, making sure there's a common language between the two, right? Even when it comes to being able to connect to different cultures, right? Number 4 is the law of the lesson. Number 5 is the process of the teacher, the teaching process. Number 6 is the learning process. And then number 7 is review. So that's the 7. And all we did last time was we talked about the first 4, and then we went straight to number 1, and we kind of broke that down and gave you a little bit more detail. There's a lot more detail on all of them. We just don't have time. So the 7 laws of teaching is a wonderful thing, especially if you are a person that understands what your role is. The job of a leader, not what a leader does as far as, the characteristics, I should say that, not the characteristics of a leader, but what is the job of a leader. And I will say this till I die. The job of a leader is to shape perspectives and give hope. That's what their job is, to shape perspectives and to give hope. So if you're out there shaping perspectives and give hope, then you got to understand the 7 laws of teaching, if you want to be effective, right? So are you guys out there? Let's see. We got a few people out there. Let's see. Ann, you got anybody with you? Is Karen with you? Is Mother Brenda with you? Okay, she's driving, but she's listening. Okay, gotcha. I appreciate it. So that's the 7 laws of teaching. But I wanted to really go into, this is episode 96, y'all. We're really getting close to 100 episodes, which is unbelievable because I didn't think I'd be doing this for 100 episodes. But I really wanted to talk about the law of the teaching process. So that's the one I'm going to go into detail. I just went over the 7 in general. Last week we went into the law of the teacher in detail. Karen is asleep. Is that a sleep study? Okay, I got you. But we want to definitely make sure that we go over the law of the teaching process a little bit more detail. We're still not going to do it justice, but we're gonna try to make sure we dive into it a little bit more. So it's 7:12. One of the things I want to say is I want to read this handout because why are we going to have the law of the teacher and then have the law of the teaching process? And what I want you to think of this. And in fact, I'm just going to read it because it's better to read it. Now, remember, this book was written in the 1800s. So to me, it's not bad. I've seen worse, but it's pretty good. But just bear with me. So when we're talking about the law of the teaching process, it's our survey of the teaching art that has thus far taken in the four entities involved in the act of teaching: the teacher, the learner, the language, the lesson. We are now to contemplate these in motion. So the analogy he draws in later is like, hey, you can study the art of you can study an actor, and then you can study the art of acting. It's just different. So he says the previous discussions have already brought these partly into view, but as each of them has its own natural law, each demands a more careful discussion than it has yet been given. In the laws of a teacher and the learner, we found necessarily reflected the functions of both. But an actor and his act are easily separated in thought, and each possesses aspects of characteristics of its own. So basically, the law of the teacher is essentially the law of qualification. You got to know. If you're a teacher, you got to know what you're talking about. And then we went and talked about the levels of knowing, right? But the law of teaching is the law of the function of teaching. And I hope that makes sense. It's a big difference, really. It's a big difference. The law of the teacher is just saying, hey, you got to know. And if you really need to know at that fourth level. And then the law of the teaching process means the whole function of teaching. And there's like 14 rules, and we're going to go over about 4 of them just because that's all we're going to have time for. There's 14 rules of teaching, and there's a whole bunch. And hopefully you guys, some of y'all pick up the book, and those that are Christians get the unabridged version because it is powerful as far as some of the examples I've read online. I have not read the book, the actual book that I just got, but some of the examples I read online are powerful in the unabridged version. So super excited about that. So let's see. I'm kind of lost without Shar sitting over there, but I wanted to say here the teaching process law. The law is to excite and direct the self activities of the learner, and to tell him nothing or her that he or she can learn themselves. I want to say that one more time. The law of the teaching process. And I know this can be boring. I hope you guys are not boring. I'm not super hyped up today. I'm a little beat down by life right now. Had some issues. I've been driving a lot, just trying to overcome the issues. They're not terrible issues, just a lot of driving. So anyway, excite and direct the self activities of the learner and tell him nothing or she nothing he or she can learn themselves. Leave the pupil to discover the truth and make them a truth finder. That's the law of the teaching process. Another thing says, he who teaches best teaches least. He who teaches best teaches least. But the learner must have the desire, and the teacher should arouse that desire. And that's what I love. I love seeing that, because a lot of times as a trainer, people spend a lot of time on people that don't have the desire. It's not going to stick. So why waste your time? Go to try to connect to somebody that really has a desire to learn what you're doling out. So the question is not when we talk about trying to inspire the learner, we're talking about a method that a lot of you guys already know. I already know this, and I want to ask you, and if you chime in, please chime in if you do know this, but the Socratic method. How many people are familiar with the Socratic method? Anne's nice. She says it's not boring. It says inspire the quest for learning. Yes. How many people have heard of the Socratic method? Socrates, the wise one, believed that asking questions brings out truth, and it's a great way to train and coach, the Socratic method. And this questioning is not therefore merely one of the modes of teaching. It is the whole of teaching. Hey, Joseph, good to see you. Good to see you. So this questioning method is not just a piece of the teaching or a mode of the teaching. It encompasses the whole of teaching. If you really want to train and develop, you got to ask questions along the way. And then it says, it is the exciting of self activities to the work of discovering the truth, learning facts, knowing the unknown. Let's see here. Uh-oh, I don't know what happened. We disconnected for a second. But the question, the Socratic method is really what they're pushing here. So making sure that you just don't spew out a whole bunch of information. You know, you just spew it out a whole bunch of information. but you're not asking them and taking them along the journey. Another thing is that I wanted to highlight here is the 14 rules of teaching. If you get the book, there's 14 of them and they're all good, but I knew we wouldn't have time to go over all of them. So 2, 5, 6, and 13 are the ones that we're going to cover a little bit. It's 7, 17. We should be able to get through those pretty easily. And the first rule, and I didn't stop and ask. Anybody familiar with the Socratic method? Anyone? I feel like I might be stopping somebody from eating a sandwich because I know we multitask during these podcasts. So the Socratic method is basically using questions to help the learner find truth, right? So like for instance, we use the like for instance, we use the FICO. The question would be, hey, do you know your FICO score? Well, what is that? Is that credit score? Yeah, it's a credit score. So, but it's they call it FICO, F period I period C period O, and that FICO score is what a lot of banks and lending organizations use to determine the interest rate, or if you will get a loan. Are you familiar with it? Not really. So you ask a question, and then they have to participate. When you're just talking, they can't participate. That's why it's hard on these little broadcasts because I depend on you guys typing. So my dad said yes. My mother Brenda said no. But the Socratic method is finding ways. So like we had a young man we were teaching about money today, young guy, talented guy, a technician that we rose to another level of leadership. And then he went to another level of leadership. But he doesn't really have a plan for his money. So, was a bunch of us sitting around and we just asked him, hey man, how much are your bills every month? Do you total them up? Do you know how much it costs for you to live? He was like, nah, I just send money to my girlfriend and she pays the bills. I said, well, have you ever just wrote them down? He says, not really. So we actually took a little time and we wrote down the bills. Okay, what's your rent? Oh, what's your electricity? Do you have a water bill? He says, I don't know. I said, we asked him where he lives. He said, oh, okay, it's probably mixed in with the apartment. What do you spend in gas? I don't really know. So he started throwing some numbers out there. And we found that just looking at his bills, he learned that he makes more than enough to pay his bills. He's made more than enough to pay his bills and that he should be saving more money. And that's the truth that he came up to. But we just kept asking questions, and then he kept answering them. We said, hey, well, write these down. Okay, what does it add up to? Another question, right? What does it add up to? All right, what have you made this year? We already know. We see his check stubs, but he didn't know. He just goes to work and works hard. So, through a series of questions, he started understanding his situation a lot better. And he left there in a better position. So, but the first one I want to talk about is number 2, you guys. Number 2. This is number 2 on the list of 14 rules of teaching. Number 2 says, select a lesson which relates to the present circumstances and wants of your pupils. The mind is already awake for these. So select something that's going to interest them because their mind is already awake. So like Shar is going through right now, trying to find a book for Kai. Kai has to read a book this July, and she's trying to help him find a book that he's going to be interested in because we don't want it to be a bad experience. We want him to find something that he can connect to. So that's all this is saying. Select lessons which relate to the present circumstances and wants of your people. The mind is already awake. Use examples. I use examples of FICO. If a person's trying to buy a house, man, they're going to listen to you about FICO. They want a house. They want this thing. So now they're going to start listening to you about FICO. The number 5 is place yourself frequently in the position of a pupil among pupils. So although you're the teacher, although you're the person giving the information, thank you, Ed. You have to put yourself in the position of the pupil if you want to effectively teach the lesson. And you have to join into some parts, try to find facts, just like they should be, and find facts or truth or the meaning of the text. So just understanding that you want to always think about it when you're teaching, to kind of trade seats real quick. Am I using words that don't make any sense? Like in the mechanic world, this is a stretch. This might not be a stretch for some of y'all, but in the mechanic world, we'll say they'll come in for alignment and we'll say your toe is out. Well, I always tell my guys, don't say that, because when you tell a person their toe is out, they don't know what that means. Toe? The only time somebody uses the word toe usually is when they're talking about their toe that's connected to their foot. So we try to stay away from terms that they don't understand. So then what we do is I say, okay, if you're going to say toe, make sure you stop and explain what toe is. So then we stop and explain that the toe of your tire is the direction of your tire. Is it out or is it going in? And if it's going in, they call it toed in. If it's going out, it's called toed out. But we try to make sure we explain it, because think about it, it's a measure of a little bit of intimidation when you come into a mechanic shop, right? And then you see your car lifted on some lift. There's a bunch of people you don't know, you don't trust, and then they start using words you don't know, right? So place yourself frequently in the position of a pupil among pupils and join the search for some fact or truth and the meaning of the text. So very, very, very important. So this is when I highlight something like, if I was to go back into the FICO example, I would say, well, what percentage of your mortgage, of your income, should your mortgage be if you were just to give a number out? Because you don't want to give them an answer. And plus, there's a lot of different answers to that. But if they say 80%, that's not right? But you want to ask them, what percentage? Have you ever thought about it? You said you want a house, but what percentage of your take-home pay should that mortgage be? And then you help them. Hey, let's Google that. Let's see what Google says. Or if you have some financial books next to you, you can do those. But you ask questions to get them to find the truth. And then I always say that the trainer is only 10% of it all. The trainer can make it faster, the learning faster for you if you got a good trainer. But they're just a foundation. There's a whole bunch of people that are successful didn't have a physical trainer. And maybe they went through books, maybe they found some other kind of way, but the trainer is the foundation. They should lay down the foundation. All right. Tell me if you're still with me. Somebody type a 1 in if you're still with me, if I put you to sleep. You helped her with a very valuable lesson. Thank you. Thank you, Ann. And I'm going to keep moving just because it's 7:25. Number 6. I know Brenda probably shouldn't be. Joseph put a 1 down. Brenda probably shouldn't be typing anything. She's driving. But number 6, this is the one. This is the one that I struggle with. Repress the impatience, which cannot wait for the pupil to explain themselves. So you ask them a question, and you're waiting for them to respond, and then you just say the answer. You just say it. Well, you should give 25%. Your mortgage should be no more than 25% of your net income. Well, what happened to them discovering, what happened to them digging in? What happened to them being involved in the learning process? Well, you just pushed them to the side. You just might as well just kick them out of the way and did it yourself. So repress the impatience, which cannot wait for the pupil to explain themselves. And you want to make sure that you stay away from that, because eventually what the person will do is they'll start resenting you. They'll be like, I don't really have a relationship with this person. All they do is just throw up knowledge on me. That's all they do. Just throw up knowledge on me. And then you'll see them not be around you. You'll see them not stay connected to you. There is, I don't know what the percentage would be, but I always like to use 90-10 rule. Let them talk 90% of the time and then you talk 10% of the time. Some people will use the 80-20. So, but I use the 90-10 because it goes along with my 10% of the trainer responsibility. My dad said he struggles with patience. I think I'm going to blame my dad for what I struggle with, my patience that I struggle with. I'll blame him. But yeah, the patience to let the person discover. Number 13, teach pupils to ask what, why, and how. Now, the what, why, and how is the nature, the cause, and the method of every fact observed and told to them, right? Teach the pupils to ask what, why, and how. And then you want to teach them how to ask where, when, and whom, and what of it, which is the the place, the time, the actors, and the consequences of events. You want them to get used to asking why. I love it when people ask me why, because if I make the mistake of just say, hey, this is what we do, and they just nod their head and do it, it's another person. That person is special to me when they say, well, why do we do it that way? Is there a reason why we do it that way? And then I say, oh man, that's when I say, oh man, I got a guy that's thinking. I got a person that's thinking, and then I get a chance to share why. And then sometimes they come back, but what about this? And then I get a chance. And now a relationship is building. Now influence is building. Maybe we don't agree, but at least I shared why, right? So it's so important to have those conversations and to teach pupils to ask those questions so that they can be the person that understands what they're doing and don't do it out of spite, right? So right now it's 7:28. I feel like we kind of blew through it, but the 14 rules of teaching are in the book. We just hit 2, 5, 6, and 13 because I feel like those are powerful ones for today. And I will always, this book here, I've had it for over 20 years. I love it to death. And we're definitely going to put an icon on the Elevate page for Train the Trainers because this is the book I use with the Train Trainers. So it's important to have a mindset. Very good, meaty and powerful. Thank you, Ann. And it's remember our phrase. Our phrase is be intentional, focus on growth, and elevate now. We got 1 minute, so I think the next one we're talking about is called, I'm super excited about this one. It's called ease versus hardship. And it's talking about that quote that went viral a while back where Denzel Washington said, ease is more of a danger to progress than hardship. Ease is more of a danger to progress than hardship. So I wanted to break that down because, man, it's pervasive. It's pervading our country and what we go through in the workforce. I mean, people are looking for easy. I did a broadcast, a motivational 3-minute motivational speech. I played one, and it was all about being tough-minded and not looking for easy. And so we're going to dive into a little bit. I think it'd be great to have it in the library of the podcast, but ease versus hardship. And we're going to talk about that, about how all the great things that we talk about and the people that we respect, it wasn't because it was easy. It's because they did something hard. So 7:30, really appreciate you guys coming on. Please like and share. Please like and share. And you guys have a great one. And I'll talk to you about I know you want to know about this sweater. So I'll talk about it with you. If it's a good time, let me know. If it's a good time now, I'll call you now and talk to you about it. If you want me to call you at another time, I'll call you at another time. So do me a favor, Ann, put a 1 down if it's a good time for you. If it's not, then, I'll leave you alone. But let me know. You guys have a good one. Thanks a lot.